Saturn in Pisces recording episode.
Yeah. We're not going to be like it's the end of an era, a short era, but the end of an era.
I'm
And it
very
brought
sad.
you signs and headlines. Like this is this has Saturn in Pisces in its natal chart.
Yes, God bless, honestly, because I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna miss Saturn in
Yeah,
Pisces.
I think as a Saturn person, I love Saturn. As controversial as it sounds, because I'm just akin to that energy, so I get it. It's like a wavelength
Mhm.
thing. And so when Saturn leaves a sign, I like it. I am kind of wistful as a child of Saturn, like, no, come back. Like like that feeling of like I really tidied some stuff up here. I did something here. So yeah, I do feel a little bit sad when Saturn leaves, but it's only ever going to just be knocking down the door in another part of my life. So
Yeah.
never really goes away, right?
You know what? As someone who is not ruled by Saturn, but who's someone who's, got a Saturn Sun opposition,
Mhm.
yeah, Saturn times, can, or at least every time is a Saturn time. But
Right.
this particular Saturn time, because it was trining into my sun,
Mm.
felt really empowering, if not,
Yeah.
a bit malaise, a bit melodramatic from time to time. But
Absolutely that. Yeah. It was in my 10th house. So there was something loud and dramatic about Saturn. And now it's going to fall into like a bit of a quieter place. The 11th house is still pretty
Mhm.
public, but not as angular, right? So I was like, oh,
Mhm.
okay. I'll just miss that guiding presence. And now
Helping
it's
me
about to
just
go into fall in Aries with Neptune. I mean, that's a different side of Saturn, but we can get into that in the coming weeks, months, and years.
Oh my God, so much juicy stuff. Also, Camille and I have a Saturn return episode, potentially planned.
Yes.
We have our obviously specific people we want to highlight because there were
Hmm.
some standouts. But if there's anyone whose Saturn return story you're like, that was wild, please let us know. We are very eager to digest, and it kind of makes
Yes.
sense. Mercury retrogrades coming up at Pisces, we're looking back and we're digesting what the fuck happened during Saturn in Pisces.
Yes. And share your own stories. That would be really cool too. Like in the comments or like, on
Mhm.
Instagram. If you were a Saturn and Pisces baby, what was this like for you? Do you see your growth as proxy through like what was happening in some celebrities' lives? Who knows?
Mhm.
Saturn is usually the same story a lot of the time, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Who's your chart twin? Do you know?
Tiana Taylor, pretty close. She's about 3 weeks ahead of me. Yeah.
Oh, fabulous. I mean, did you
But
see
not
her? She was so
quite.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, I was telling you offline, like, okay, Alondria, Tiana Taylor, both kind of like zero-ish degrees Mars, where my Mars is at Gemini. I'm like, okay, they are ascending. So period, me too.
Yes!
I don't get how that, Mars getting stuff from Uranus like does that. Like it's an interesting kind of astrology problem solving too. Like, oh, I didn't think of ascendants when I think of Uranus on Mars, but it makes sense, right?
Mm.
Expecting the unexpected.
I like that because you know how like Uranus is like tilted on
Yeah.
its own side or whatever, like because it's Uranus,
Mhm.
Uranus, Uranus,
It
LOL.
doesn't even have a consistent name.
Correct. And the idea that you're always like tilting upwards. So I kind of
Oh,
view that as Uranus on your Mars as like your ambitions or motivations getting like that upward trajectory or that tilt upward. So
I
that's
love that. I
cool.
love that. Yeah, looking up. Yeah, and it's all the result of their actions. So they
Mm,
heeded the call, right? They showed up and yeah, now they're moving up with Uranus.
mm.
Uranus.
Exactly. Wait, so what would be your Saturn Pisces lesson for you now that it's cleared the 10th? Or clearing,
Oh,
clearing in
I was gonna say,
less than
girl,
an
it's still
hour.
at 29. I have like no retrospect. But I could say, as someone whose midheaven was at 2 degrees Pisces, right? So um, getting that conjunction pretty early on. One, it is true that I will just confirm that Saturn in the 10th house does reveal the fruits of your labors. And so I hit 15 years in the government. I got a promotion that I started, when Saturn was in Virgo. So literally at the bottom of my chart, it rose to the top, and I had the highest position I had ever had in the government. This is
Amazing.
pre-Trump. Okay, so we're
Mm.
working some things out, but Saturn still showed me what was possible. It helped me to deepen into my astrology, but not just like the academic Aquarius part of things, but more the artistic and the lyrical and the poetic side of things, and reintroducing me to a skill of like, I wouldn't call it graphic designing, but I love collaging and like digital art. I used to do it kind of as a kid, given the tools we had then, like with what, paint. So it reintroduced that to me. It's just it's hard to kind of congeal all of what it was, but if there's one thing I will take away from it is that I feel professionally competent. It reflected that back to me, and I rode the waves of confusion with, I think, with grace, and kind of ended up with some clear wins along the way. Yeah.
Oh,
What
that's so
about you?
beautiful.
You.
Oh my gosh. Well, one, obviously, this project
Yes.
has been something that I think I've been trying to conceptualize throughout the whole Saturn and Pisces,
Wow, and
and
right at the end.
right at the end, it's like, okay, this is the form. This is how I want it structured. This is who I want to do this with. Like, there was a lot of creative back and forth. I mean, the reality is, right, like during post my
Fifth
Saturn
house,
return,
right?
fifth house, yes,
Got it.
exactly. There was a lot of uncertainty, obviously, in having left my last career in finance. I left in August of 2022, so right before Saturn moved into Pisces. So this
Yeah.
was still finishing up my Saturn
Yeah.
return. And then, I was fortunate at the time to have gotten onto like a podcast, and it was like a Bravo podcast, and there was a whole different account with that. And I think the idea of being reborn again and
Mm.
giving myself a chance to really explore what creatively this could look like. This meaning astrology and like the rest of my life, but also committing to wanting to make sure I'm doing the things I enjoy doing as a part of it, and
Yeah.
putting in the work around it. Funnily enough, I kind of gone through like the ebbs and flows. Like I had a whole ass account, and then I had to give all that up and then rebuild. And then, the pop astrologist was born during Saturn and Pisces as well. I think for the longest time for me too, there was a lot of uncertainty of how to own my POV and
Mhm.
my expression. So this is what people when I'm talking about like fifth house self-expression, like this is what I mean in the idea. Like if you have a perspective, you kind of like double down, you back it, and how does that show up creatively speaking? And so I kind of had to just own a lot of my ego, I guess, and fear, and just say, hey, like I like pop culture, I like astrology, I like them both. People shit on both. It's okay. And
Ah, you're so right. Yeah.
I'm not here to like say yes to everything. I'm just here to be like, these are the things I like,
I
and I'm
love
gonna just
that.
share them. So, yeah, I'm really appreciative to Saturn for that, especially again because it's
Mhm.
trining into my sun.
Yeah,
My
10 tones
kids.
down on what you like, but like through Pisces as like kind of an audience of what you've been doing, it's like very healing. It's touching
Mhm.
something. It's not, it has substance, right? So people who say astrology, but also pop culture has nothing, like think again. Because you're clearly doing it, you know what I mean? I love that for you. I didn't realize I kind of met you right after you had just changed your life because I met you like September 2023 and
Oh my God,
started August
yeah.
2022, so about a year in.
The
Wow.
the lore of Camille and I as we met
I
at
thought
like
I met you. I was like, oh, she's been an astrologer for 10 years. Because that's the vibe you gave. Okay. So to hear it, like, wait, that was a year before we met? No.
Oh my God. No, it's actually super wild. I feel like always very insecure when someone asks, like, how long have you been studying
Yes, of
astrology?
course. Yeah.
And like there's always that in the back of your mind, like, oh, maybe I haven't studied enough because now I don't have as many years. But what I will say is I do believe I was an astrologer in my past life. Ninth house sun, south node, ninth house, so
Yeah.
it's like, it has always been there. And just
Yeah. You're
trusting
just
your
remembering it. Yeah.
yeah, and so many of us are too, to be honest. So yeah, no, our I love Astro Bash. That was where we met.
It
Saturn. It was definitely a Saturn and Pisces type of event.
was. All the
Um,
faces of Pisces. I love it.
all the phases of Pisces. But speaking of Pisces, obviously this was a big week for, not just Saturn and Pisces, even though, of
Mhm.
course, grand finale. We had the Pisces stellium himself, Bad Bunny, at the Super Bowl to start the week. Not necessarily a
Yeah.
transit, but a Piscean figure.
Oh, absolutely. There's something that resonates with the time. Like, even though his Super Bowl halftime performance technically had Venus in Aquarius, that kind of like rush of like the joy and how connected we all felt just felt like such a potent preview and like stand for what Venus and Pisces means, like the
Hmm.
togetherness that can be fostered through art and like visuals. So it did feel just very Piscean, even though we're still closing out this Aquarius stellium. Although I will say, in the wake of Bad Bunny's performance, like the memes around it have been lush, have been great. And someone did draw a comparison between like this is how all the signs showed up through the Super Bowl, which I loved seeing it.
Hmm.
And Aquarius was the part that was like going through all of the Americas. So there still was this Aquarius quality of like, no, let me actually logically talk you through this. It's not just the
Hmm.
United States of America, it's all of these countries. So like the geography lesson felt very like straightforwardly Aquarius, and the
Hmm.
rest felt like the kind of art and the rhythm and the tone of Pisces. I loved it. I've been riding the
Oh
high
my
all
God.
week.
It's so funny because I just remember thinking, like, oh my God, yeah, now everyone hates on culture. Now everyone loves on culture. Like, when there is a
Hmm.
moment where you use your platform the way, in theory, you should be using your platform. Not saying there's a right or wrong way, but
Yeah,
I think if you are a public figure, a lot of the times the response is going to almost like reflect how honest I think you were being with yourself as part of the
good point.
process.
Yeah.
And so to see this type of wow, like quote unquote political performance really touch so many people, move so many people, yet still espouse like these very Piscean values of like, hey, it's revolutionary to actually like love each other. And what does loving each other mean? It means seeing each other. It means recognizing not only yourself, but also everything that's come before you.
Yeah.
And I think something that's been I've been noodling on with Pisces is again the idea of like the gaze, because like there is the idea of who you should be superimposed by the world, but then there's also the ingestion of that and believing that that is all you can be. And
Mm.
then it takes a certain kind of person, figure, mythic figure, celebrity, regardless of how we feel about them, to inspire you or to remind you that you can subvert that. Even if maybe you don't feel like you can do that in your life, but to see that it's possible and to see it being widely receptive is, I mean, it's why we watch sports.
It's so medicinal. Yeah,
It's
you said so.
amazing.
That's so beautiful. And I love it as Saturn at that 29th degree also as kind of like shattering an image of what is
Hmm.
possible and what you could be. But when you said, loving each other is revolutionary, I was like, there it is. That's like the most beautiful combo of Aquarius energy. Like it's
Yeah.
radical and subversive, LOL, to love
Yeah.
thy neighbor. Okay. But then there's also like the sentiment right behind Pisces, and we're all human and we all just want to groove and love, right? And be seen and be accepted. That's kind of more of the Piscean currency.
Hmm.
But you're right, like vision and gaze, like what is being seen, right? Absolutely matters. And I think Bad Bunny projected a different way of being seen. And now Saturn gets to take that with it into Aries. And
Hmm.
we'll go around the whole, I don't know, merry-go-round. We'll see what was
Yeah.
what was kind of created from this moment in the culture.
We'll spin the wheel again. Because even though
Yes.
we are in a balsamic Saturn Neptune time, it's in these waning moments that the essence of the next come
Oh,
through.
so true. Yes, yes.
So very important that this happened now, at this junction. Also very important that with this Saturn and Pisces transit, obviously last year, we also had Kendrick's performance, right? Like, and again, when you think about the Super Bowl, yeah, sure, we can view it as like a sports, like people are playing ball or whatever at this
Mhm.
on this large entertainment stage, but whenever people get together in community or tune into something, naturally it's tapping into a higher vibration or a higher
Always.
frequency. And I think you also saw that in the Super Bowl performance, the fact that the symbolism rang so loud that on the 250th anniversary of America in the Empire Pluto return falling era, the Seahawks officially beat the Patriots.
Yes. I mean, I didn't want to like break your heart last time, but there's just something about a team called the Patriots in 2026 that's just not gonna pass. It's just not gonna pass.
Listen, I can
It's
I
not
can hold
gonna work.
I can hold multitudes, okay?
I
I
know.
can hold a lot of grief for this fucking team and Stefon Diggs and all this shit and be a Pats fan and also recognize, you know what? This is the only time that I'm happy the team lost. Okay?
Mhm.
Like I will take the
It
L.
served a bigger purpose, maybe symbolically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
What even is a patriot? That's
But
the whole kind of thing of like, who is American? That's what we're reckoning with.
literally,
Yeah.
literally. And I mean, listen, this is momentous. And that's why I think it was just hope on hope on hope that was building on top of each other in one singular event. And when you think about this is what the collective is conjuring, profound. And I hope, that it inspires people not just to kind of view this as a moment in isolation or like this was just a one-time thing, but to really
Mhm.
use it as a sermon to guide how you want to use your Saturn and Aries time to
Yeah,
really build.
anyone who's like, yeah, paying attention to what is happening can see this definitely like as a culmination of like Saturn and Pisces, but also as like the seed of what Saturn and Aries can bring. There's just something so momentous. And also just thinking about how the performance of the halftime show itself was like maximum, what, like 10, 12 minutes? Isn't it
Hmm.
crazy the amount of impact that short amount of time can have on like the world? Like this was,
Yeah.
people watched the world over for this. Like
Hmm.
Benito brought everyone together. Yeah, so there's just something so gorgeous about like how this ended in with Pisces, with Saturn and Pisces, but what it's also
Hmm.
saying about the beginning of Saturn and Aries and what can come.
Chills, literally
Mm.
chills. So, that was sort of the big first event of the week. Obviously, there were other things that were happening at that junction too, i.e., like Cardi B, LOL, breaking up with Stefon Diggs.
So is that confirmed or
Well, I don't know, honestly. It is unfollowed. Stefan went to court, for allegedly choking out his chef
he's
or
not having a
something.
good time? Pull up his chart. What's going on?
It is tough right now. Well, I pulled up Cardi B's chart to talk about her also this week because obviously, this is the week her tour started. She announced a new beauty brand. But maybe even before we dive into Stefan and Cardi B, just to give people a rundown of the transit, we had Venus move into Pisces. So, as you alluded to, the Super Bowl happened, Venus, energetic-ish degree of Aquarius, and then we finally get Venus in Pisces. This was also the week that Mercury retrograde started in
Mhm.
Pisces, and we also had eclipse season formally like kick off. And I think it kind of really kicks off, with that Mercury on the North Node that happened this week, Feb 12th, and then of course we get to today, the last day of Saturn in Pisces. So
Yeah, Friday the 13th. What a way to go out, old crone Saturn.
spooky!
Spooky.
Maybe we can reclaim it. It's like liberating. We're liberating from the fear of Friday the 13th.
There we go. I'm sure there's something awful behind it. I'm sure there's some kind of reclaimed history. It's like a woman invented it and then a man said it was bad. Like,
Oh
I'm
my
sure.
God. Well, it is Galentine's. It happens
There
to be
you
Galentine's Day. Happy
go.
Galentine's, by the way.
Oh my God, the weather of having Venus and Pisces for Galentine's, like be with your gals, man. Be with your pals.
It
Beautiful.
it is very true. Also, Jill Scott released her
She
album
did.
today after freaking 10 years, which
Ooh, she
is
knows that people are gonna be conceiving.
yes.
That is a smart move. That is smart.
Amazing, amazing. So obviously, that was one headline. We got a lot of headlines to cover this week. Admittedly, we have, well, the monks arriving at DC.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pull up the US chart. It'd be cool actually to see like the Super Bowl in the US chart to see like what this moment brought also for the United
Yeah.
States. Obviously, also we had the very sad news of James Van Der Beek passing this week. We are also going to do a mini Olympic coverage segment, especially if you're a figure skating fan. This was a very interesting week. And then, kind of wrap up, or maybe like, I don't know, maybe we don't wrap up with Gisele Pelicot, but Gisele Pelicot, some of you might know, she is this incredible, fierce, strong woman who has redefined what shame means, especially if you don't know what happened. Her memoir is coming out, but her husband is one of the worst people I've ever met, or not met, ever read about in my entire life.
Okay.
So let us go back to the beginning of the week, LOL, with Cardi B and Stefan.
Like she's also very symbolic of Neptune entering Aries. There's
Hmm.
something very big about like these Latino stars, Benito and Cardi B, both like in this week having milestone moments. So she's beginning, I think this is her first kind of like stadium solo tour ever.
Oh,
Um,
is it? I
I don't
wasn't
think she's
sh
ever gone on tour.
She didn't
in
do it for the
this kind of
invasion of
way.
privacy?
I don't know.
Oh,
There is something new and
damn.
fresh about what she's
Mm.
doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did see a video about how people were like, "Congratulations, you did such a good job." She was like, "It was so hard. I was so scared." So there is something new or fresh about what she's doing. But they
Yeah.
can check us in the comments. I do believe there's something different about this. But like two major Latino stars, Cardi and Benito, and this like Neptune in Aries moment resting them in the spotlight. So there's something not coincidental about that. I think we're going to see like cultural ascendance with
Mm.
Neptune and Aries, specifically the cultures that have been marginalized.
Oh, absolutely. Even, British Vogue this week. You had Bavita, I think is her name. Like she was the girl who opened up the Chanel show for Matthew
Yes.
Blazy, and then she's the first couture bride. Like she's a whole lot of firsts. And, the magazine incorrectly said she was actually like the first solo model on the cover. Like Edward Enninful, who was the past editor of Vogue, really did an amazing job in bringing diversity to the covers. But it's really striking to see like an Indian model for
Yeah.
the spring cover, right? Like
Yeah.
Spring Awakening. There's a whole new set of faces coming through, is all I'm
Yes.
gonna
It's about
say.
fresh things. Yeah.
hmm So obviously, what people heard maybe this week was that Cardi B and Stefon Diggs seemingly unfollowed each other in the middle or pre the Super Bowl even, which led to speculation they might not be together. The Super Bowl happened with Venus squaring Uranus, right? So when you think about an unexpected relationship moment or a liberating relationship moment and disruption, that was kind of there. That
It
was
was
kind of there.
absolutely there. She's also in a Mars square to Venus. So Mars in Aquarius is coming up on a square with her Venus in Scorpio at 20 degrees. And so that's something to be expected, like some relationship drama, splits. It's happening in a very public place for her in her 11th house. So it makes sense, right, that people like you and I would be speculating, or it's not something that's ever like private.
hmm
Which is like the bane of her life, right? With that Saturn in the 11th house, like invasion of privacy, like always.
Always. Jupiter's on her Mars in the fourth. The rumor mill goes, I don't know if this is like certain. He apparently like invited his other baby mama or something, right? And she
Right.
didn't know. And that would be tough, like to stomach in that moment. And so, yeah, like the idea of a Mars, Cancer, a severance, also the idea of a baby mom, like the symbolism is so rich in the chart and
Yeah.
layered.
I also wonder if she just had her own realization with Neptune entering her first house and like kind of putting her foot down, like, this is good for my soul, this is good for my spirit. So then therefore I'm gonna like move away from this thing. Also, she's like an
Mm.
icon in the making. I also thought of that with Neptune entering her first house, like moving from the 10th. It's not moving from the 10th to the first, but she has her natal Neptune in the 10th, and now transit Neptune is
Mm.
in the first, which to me really feels like an energizing of that promise around like fame and kind of like being everywhere. So with her hair care line and at the Super Bowl and like starting this new tour, she's like ascending in a major way. So it would make sense kind of if she was like, that's an old identity. You're not kind of coming with me, right? It's about like what I'm doing and what I'm bringing to the table.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously we done a separate episode on Cardi B,
Hmm.
and we talked about how Stefon Diggs could feel very familiar from the Sagittarius perspective, and I have his chart pulled up, very similar to Offset, and that was always like the biggest concern, right?
Yeah.
Like, is she inadvertently repeating a pattern?
Yeah.
And now that you think about it, at this new era with Neptune in the first, what does that mean for her? Is she done with this lesson? Is she done with this pattern? Because sometimes when you think about the 10th house also, that can describe like your relationship status, right?
Yeah.
How the public perceives your relationship even. Maybe, moving forward, she's not going to be dating such public people. Maybe it's even a different approach to dating that is a different type a person outside of the field, maybe like a Gaga, right? Like I'm not dating another creative or at whatever. I'm going to date like a businessman that builds me my own home studio.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like break if there's one transit or Aries to me feels like good playing ground for like breaking a pattern or like kind of like doing something new. So I
hmm
can see that as being like potential for like being very possible for her. Yeah.
hmm Well, also obviously, it's not necessarily the best time in the world to be Stefan Diggs because, again, he is in court.
Yeah. Okay, let's see what's going on here.
Ooh, Mars, Sun on
Yeah.
his Saturn.
Okay. Yeah, highlighting restraints, responsibilities, things from the past coming back to be resolved, right? Saturn and like things kind of taking a long time. That makes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm also thinking about that South Node hitting his Chiron. Whoo, Venus
Yeah.
opposing Chiron. I'm not ever gonna say he did it absolutely. And yet, it's very
Mhm.
interesting because there is like obviously a Chiron hit in the eighth house, ruled by Mercury in Scorpio. So to me, there's a lot of nebulousness.
Yeah.
And, it might be easy to assume one thing versus the other, but in these Saturn balsamic times with Neptune, like I think I saw an astrologer, I forget who it was, but it's like nothing is as it seems.
Yeah, that's good. Good way to put it.
This is going to be an interesting time for him, especially when you think about the upcoming Venus retrograde and how Jupiter is going to be in Leo, the South Node is going to move through Leo, that's going to be squaring his Scorpio.
Yeah.
So it's not over for him. And I also do wonder if it's not over for him and Cardi just because of the Venus retrograde
Very
Scorpios.
true. Very true. They may like rekindle or yeah, they can come back together. Yeah.
hmm We'll see.
We
We
will
shall
see.
see. Okay, so this is the Super Bowl on the United States chart. And let's see, Bad Bunny's performance, I think he raked in over 125 million viewers. It's
Hmm.
not the most watched. I think Kendrick might be the most watched
No,
Super
it was the
Bowl.
most watched. Bad Bunny.
Was
Yeah.
it? I thought they had released the stats and it was like Michael Jackson had higher, like 133, 100, because I think Kendrick had 135, Michael Jackson
Yeah.
133. And then did they revise the Bad Bunny number up
I
then?
might have seen an infographic, maybe that was wrong, but he was like right above Kendrick Lamar, like 135 or like
Oh,
136 or something. We'll have to
interesting.
confirm, but definitely
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
most watched of all time,
For
right?
sure, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. One of the most watched, absolutely.
Yes.
And so, as you can see here, we talk a lot about like Love Thy Neighbor earlier in the episode, and look at that third house getting activated. The concept of the states, as you said.
Yeah, and also there were so many Super Bowl like takes, and I was just kind of scrolling through social media, and someone said, Bad Bunny is a result of the American experiment, and it just, with the Aquarius moon, it makes sense. Like, yeah, our populace is an experiment. Like, what happens when you take immigrants from everywhere, you
Yeah.
put them in like one nation? There's so many languages and so many cultures coexisting. That's such a beautiful Aquarius moon reality, but we have that Cancer
Mhm.
stellium, right? We're like, ew, foreign. That's
Mhm.
like uncomfortable or different. And that's the inherent tension that America has always been dealing with
Mhm.
is we advertise as like this is the land of promise and like okay so then people come or then we take over so many different countries and then they also become our citizens but then we're like no but you're not American so it's just an
Mhm.
interesting tension so with all of this Aquarius stuff on our Aquarius moon on the south node of the United States, I think it's kind of like this poke, like with Mars there, of like this is America. Hello. Like this is the
Mm.
experiment. This is how it is going as planned, right? There's diversity, there's celebration, there's culture. There's only like a select few who want to regress us back into like a more standard time. So that's what I was kind of thinking about. There was like a joyful reckoning even through this
Mm.
Super Bowl when you think about like who America says is American and like this pretend war that people think we're fighting against like white culture and like see this is what happens when they diversify you out of the picture like I saw like some of the takes that like
Yes.
the MAGA people were doing and it's like, sorry, bro, but this is in the DNA of America. It just is.
Mhm.
So that's what that was kind of making me think about. And also like the love and the connection that was garnered with Venus on top of our moon. And like, yeah, a lot of people did come together.
Oh, I mean, that moon will also be getting activated with
Yeah,
the upcoming
eclipse.
solar eclipse next week. Dun dun
Woof.
dun. You know what? We're not even gonna broach that.
Yeah, we're just speechless.
We're just gonna recap that.
Yeah, we're just gonna see what plays out.
Because there's a lot that could happen this week. It's an interesting time. But what I think is also really interesting about what you said, just the idea that, like, yeah, Bad Bunny is the product of the American social experiment. Like,
Hmm.
what a very Aquarian term,
Hmm.
experiment, even a science experiment. So that's fascinating. And something that was also coming to mind was when I think about like that Pluto on the South Node, right? It's like reckoning,
Hmm.
reckoning this sort of like old fear. But then when you think about the Saturn rulership of it, right? Like Saturn in Libra, like the exaltation of Saturn in this case, enforcing caste system, social hierarchy.
Yeah,
But the reality is that is inevitably changing because, as per the demographics or the Census Bureau,
there you go.
by 2044, white people are no longer going to be the majority.
Yeah. And that's Saturn, right? Those are statistics. That's not like a felt sense. That's just like actually what's happening.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so we will have to face that.
I mean, Elon Musk, I think, had a tweet recently about like, again, it's like all this white fear, like, oh my God, this is happening. We're gonna be the minority. And then you know what they're gonna do? What we do to them. Because there is this fear, right, of like what we've done. And so if
So
obviously
you
the
know
no
what you've done. So you know it. You see it. That's very Pluto South Node.
Also, the nodes being on the United States series right now, when you think about series, right, like how we were raised in this myth of America, and then now
Mhm.
having to like come maybe to an old vision, we have to like purge a little bit, like repurify the vision and the dream. Almost like the dream is not impossible. As much as there is an old way of viewing our sense of helplessness, there
Mm.
is a revision or a reckoning that's needed in order for us to really will in the change we want to see. So
Yeah, we definitely need breakdown for the breakthrough.
amazing Jupiter on the sun moment for the United States with the Super
Mm.
Bowl. Interesting, Lilith obviously in Sagittarius. Turning Point USA did not get as many views. I think like Candace Owens is out there trying to like really show how Turning Point USA lied about its viewership. It's like really funny, like the arc of
God.
Candace Owens, honestly.
She has Aquarius Taurus placements, and she's one of those people that I'm like, hope I'm not like that. Hope it doesn't manifest like that through me. Yikes.
But you know what? I want to give her some flowers because to have Aquarius and Taurus placements and then for you to completely do a 180 like this is like, oh, okay, she can be moved. Like people can
Yeah.
be moved, to the middle. And like we can all kind of start to see the pieces, especially with this whole Epstein Files shit show
Mm. Mhm.
in this current moment. And we won't necessarily be talking about the Epstein Files today. Emily, Anne, and I have a separate Epstein Files episode to digest all
Nice.
that bullshit. But it is an interesting time for the disillusionment of everything we thought was good and true, but really finding out we've grown up in a lie.
Yeah, I was watching something today about how, like as a tween, I was going to like Pink and Limited Too and Abercrombie and all
Hmm.
these establishments that were owned by his name is
Lex
escape me.
Wexner.
There you go. And he
Hmm.
was at the island. He was one of the main like now I won't say
Creepos.
supporters, but he like yeah, he was sort of like one of the main ones. And it just made me feel like yuck, like such a Pluto and Scorpio generation reckoning that we're just
Hmm.
continuing to go through like all of these staples of our past. We're like shrouded in like these grosser tendrils of scandal and corruption. That's also very Jupiter retrograde in
Hmm.
Cancer. Let's look
Hmm.
back at our American pastimes, what we grew up with, and oh, it was gross. Oh,
Yeah.
it was tied to child sex trafficking. And I was just at the mall, excited to go to Limited Too. I don't know. There's something itchy,
Icky.
ironic, yeah, and kind of absurd about it, but it
Hmm.
sucks. It really, really sucks.
Hmm. When you think about this concept of like the male gaze, right? And
Mhm.
like it's a white male gaze in the context of America, but like then you're thinking about, wait a minute, there's so many women who like reclaim their sexuality, yet it's often very clumsy because it's still under the
The male
guise
gaze, yeah.
of the male gaze. I'm so curious about what's going through, you know what I mean, their minds as well. The idea of I'm overtly sexualizing myself because it's somehow empowering.
Yeah.
But is it empowering? It wouldn't be the Pluto Scorpio generation. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like I had always just been like, okay, no, yes, AIDS was horrible. And the Pluto Scorpio generation did also happen during the AIDS epidemic.
Mhm.
And yeah, you think of Scorpio, you think of death, that makes sense. You think about us growing up under the context of like Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky and that whole scandal, right? And like you're like, okay, and then we're also in the Me Too era, so we're reckoning with it, but there was never explicit, like something was still waiting
Mm.
because Scorpio is a lot about like the darkest of the dark and like what are
Yeah.
you hiding underneath all this power, right? Like there had to be a reckoning coming. So it makes sense that part of Pluto's moving into Aquarius in the third house of like
Yes.
perception and filter. The millennial generation, Pluto Scorpio in the 12th house, we're getting
Yeah.
all this shit exposed and we're all grieving on some deep level.
There is deep grief because it's as though my childhood, it just, it doesn't take away from what I enjoy, but it adds this extra cultural layer that I just have to reckon with as an adult, that things that I enjoyed were at the expense of other things that now as a 35-year-old person I'm staunchly against. And I remember thinking about this, like Pluto and Scorpio millennial generation is in the 12th house of the United States. And so much of what we're here to do is bring the United States to its knees to make it notice these things that otherwise it would rather like shove right into the 12th
Mm-hmm.
house. And I think the Pluto and Sag generation, with how loud and colorful and blunt they are, makes sense that
Yeah.
they're Pluto like in the first house of America.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the square and like Pluto going through the third house of America of like the communication and the media and the information and the transmissions we're getting, right? Or it just feels like a lot, right? It's hitting that square of like, oh, there was so much more that was hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just now only like kind of seeing it or reckoning with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And something that just came to me too, because obviously the United States has the third, ninth house, like nodal axis. The idea of education, who teaches us about the history, because the sun ruling the north node. And what I think is so beautiful about this moment is I love the Super Bowl. I love the performance, but I also really loved the way that everyone came to the watering hole to share their understanding of the performance and to create like a deeper intellectual discourse. And I hope like
Yes.
even if you may have just enjoyed the performance superficially, right? Like vibes were great. And then you went online and you were undoubtedly bombarded with probably someone's take on the
Yes.
performance. You learned something. And I think that's so beautiful with the moon ruling the eighth house, almost as if it is the responsibility of the people to teach each other about what has happened. And we all have to bring that to the table. And it's also why there is such a really interesting thing happening even with tech and censorship, right? Because this is really how education is going to get distilled into the masses.
Yeah.
But because you can't rely on the system, they're trying to erase history,
There's
lived
something
history.
about, yeah, the North Node in Leo being ruled by an eighth house sun as like we are behind the scenes kind of negotiating what it is that you see and what it
Hmm.
is that will be the defining narrative. But you're so right. And with the advent of social media, which is such an Aquarius thing, this Aquarius third house moon has more like currency to like, no, I want to get the message out before the message can be like co-opted by these eighth house things, right, happening in the background. And that's a
Hmm.
function of the people. And even
Hmm.
like that south node being ruled by a public Saturn, right, in the 11th house, right? So, like, again, like social media, exchanging ideas, that's how we rewrite the American story. Because you're right, we're not going to get reliable narratives from the people who have been in charge. It's going to be
Hmm.
from you and me.
Yeah. You, me, and the world. What
Yeah.
do you make of, there are astrologers who kind of predict the end of social media.
Oh, really? I've
Or
never even
I've
encountered that.
I've seen it, like the idea of like these things are gonna go away. And I'm like,
Okay.
I disagree. I do
Yeah.
think that social media and the third house gains in importance, especially in the United States. And this week there was also a lot about like Anthropic and AI and these AI modules and how the person that was responsible for like safety and ethics decided they wanted to quit
Mm.
because well, one, it just sounded like there was just no hope. Like this is just gonna like kill us all, basically.
Yeah.
But also like they wanted to explore poetry and explore like deeper existential questions. So I think it's very interesting the revolution of thought that's happening as well right now, very Enlightenment era coded. But I think it's gonna happen both online and offline
Yeah. What was the
simultaneously.
precipitating reason for the end of social media? Just that people are tired of it?
Yeah, I think something about like it's getting tied into the Neptune and Pisces. People want to go
Mm.
analog. And my thing is
Okay.
this, I think we've had this conversation before. Going analog now is like a rich people privilege thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So, like everyone organizes whether it's Signal, like you're still on technology, but you still find out your information through social media. Like that's just, there's no other way around it. And so
Yeah.
to me, it just feels premature to call the death of it. It may be death of our relationship with it, but I'm not even sure I would be comfortable saying that because it is again showing like TikTok, there's a reason why they had to kind of transfer the ownership under such onerous terms, right? Because that if you were not on TikTok, you probably missed out on all that footage coming out of like Nepal, all the protests that were coming out worldwide. We got the genocide live streamed, right? So social media is still gonna be really important, honestly, and it might even be a lifeline to other
Yes.
people in other parts of the world. So it's not gonna go away,
Yeah, I'm
not by a
curious
stretch.
about the kind of people making those predictions are very privileged. Got a place to live in to be able to deny the hold of technology and how it's like very much connected to survival and how you stay in touch and how you get a job. I think with our Uranus return, we will change the way that we interact with media. I do think
Mm-hmm.
that there may be a quality of like things happening too fast, but this Uranus trine Pluto in air signs, like rapid development. And so there may be like factions or kind of like people who break off from like those mainstream tech things. Like maybe that looks
Mm-hmm.
like a mass exodus from kinds of social media. But
Mm-hmm.
technology as it is, and internet and like checking in with people that will always exist as like a
Yeah.
mechanism for communication.
Mm-hmm. I
That's like
mean,
trying to take back like the written word.
yeah.
It's just kind of impossible at this point. It's so deeply entrenched.
Now you've let it out of the bag. It's like we're
Exactly. Very Pandora's box. I feel like
mm,
AI, like maybe rich people will be able to negotiate their way out of continually having to interact with AI because they'll have
hmm
resources or they'll know someone. But like someone who has less resources, right? They go to like open a bank account, they have to like go through that chat bot first. Like people will be afforded the opportunity to avoid these things that are about to take over our lives. And it's not going to
hmm
be most of us.
Yeah.
We will be forced to interact with it. So there is a
hmm
schism, there's a break, there's a change happening, but it's not going to wipe out social media. I don't think so.
Yeah. No, in fact, I think the people, like you said, who are going to get offline are the people who would most likely appear in the Epstein files and
Yes,
now
yes.
realizing we can't leave
I,
paper trails, so we
yeah.
got to do our business offline.
Ugh, gross. Yeah.
Now that we're all distracted with the Epstein files and this fall guy, who the fuck is running the show right now?
Hmm.
That's still happening. Like, you think the rich people or whoever in the files decided we're just gonna stop everything right now because, like,
Yeah, it's definitely still
no.
occurring. Yeah.
Moving on to a little, I don't know, hope. Saturn Neptune balsamic right now. It's like very, oh my God,
Yeah.
depressing and hopeful. I don't know, but
Both.
we everything everywhere all at once. We moved to 2 days after the Super Bowl, Feb 10th. This was the day Venus moved into Pisces. And this was also the day that the monks
Hmm.
arrived to DC.
Yeah, what a like it's very poignant, right? So Venus exalted in Pisces brings forth the highest ideals of love and compassion and surrendering to something bigger and like connecting. And so what a huge potent moment. And again, like even if you don't do electional astrology, you will find that the astrology always works for whatever day or
Mhm.
time that you do things. There's something rich and symbolic about them landing in DC, which is the epicenter of this fascist takeover. It's the headquarters of all the terribleness that's happening. And
Mhm.
then on the day that Venus enters Pisces, monks pervade the atmosphere. They bring love and hope and inspiration. And Mercury in Pisces on the North Node, right, sharing messages of love and hope and inspiration as well.
Mhm.
As a resident kind of DC and a DC native, I wasn't able to go, but I did. I felt something.
I was
I
gonna
was I was also
ask.
like living off like Bad Bunny, but
Yeah.
so I was porous. I was attuned to like want to soak those kinds of things in, and I
Hmm.
felt it when the monks came through that
Mm.
Venus and Pisces. Like, oh, there's a different air.
I think I saw something where there were more people who attended this than the inauguration. Like it
Okay,
just
period.
looked full and everyone was out. And one of the messages that I saw from the monks was like, go get off your phone.
Yes, I saw that. Yeah,
First thing in the morning, do not reach for your phone, which I am going to be more mindfully
me too.
practicing as part of Ramadan, which starts next week. Ha
Yeah.
ha ha. And so it's just really profound, right? When you think about planets that move into the fourth house, there's a sense of coming home, right? And
Mm.
now the idea of a spiritual message, a divine love coming home. And when you think about when like the progressed moon, like let's say moves into the fourth, right? There is this sense of I'm taking a stand for something that is personal to me that might be countercultural into the prevailing or authority or whatever is happening right now. And for this to also whole sign wise square with the United States, like Sagittarius ascendant, right? Like we are reinstilling this message of hope, but through
Mhm.
peace. And I think that's really beautiful. Almost like even with the North Node in that fourth house, like we have to kind of come back a little bit. We've kind of grown beyond what we inherently promised. The hero has become the bully, right? And we kind of have to check that ego a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't realize that we're still on the Sibley chart. So it's almost like DC is the fourth house headquarters of the United
Mm-hmm.
States, right? So it does kind of make sense that that fourth house really spotlit DC. I couldn't find a reliable natal chart for DC, which was really pissing me off. But this
Interesting.
symbolically, yeah, there's too many different dates. But this
Yeah.
symbolically makes a lot of sense for let's go to the root of the problem, okay? It's
Mm-hmm.
down here in the fourth
Yeah.
house. It's DC. I mean, technically, the IC is in the fifth house. All these planets are kind of deeply submerged at the darkest
Mm-hmm.
part of the United States' chart. And what it's
Mm-hmm.
trying to do is like instill a sense of hope so that as we rise, as we move forward, right, it's maybe with this new perspective. It's with the ability to put our phones down, right? Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's also the thing. I think Stephen Forrest writes about this. Like, we talk about escapism and binging and slowly like withering away with Neptune or Pisces, you know? But there is also the notion of binging and wasting away in front of like your screen or your TVs and not actively participating, but just like consuming in such a
Sure.
way. And
Yeah.
so either way, right? Like Neptune on the United States IC, Venus in the fourth house, North Node on the series. There is a spiritual reckoning happening, that, we're all being asked to quiet down a little bit. So
Mm.
we can, as Stephen would also say, hear the angels whisper.
Yeah, like tune in, right? And we can do that when we're not as distracted. Totally.
What's also really funny was that same day we had the Vatican Bank, LOL, announce that they were like starting two indexes or something like that
Okay.
to highlight like good Catholic behavior. It's like ESG
Uh,
on steroids, but it's ironic because they've got like Meta and all.
Why is the Vatican so like high tech
The Vatican.
and like innovative?
You know what? It's actually wild because I think Pope Leo, he comes from a technologically inclined line of
Okay,
popes, basically. So it's kind
got
of
it.
cool to see a new pope with the Pluto and Aquarius era named Leo, the opposite side of Aquarius, like bringing out, like really letting it roar and show through. But the Vatican Bank is very fascinating, right? Because for the longest time, like Rome, I think popes were from like the richest families, like I think what was it, the Borgias family,
Mhm.
they inspired Game of Thrones, but they
Oh,
actually also controlled like the money, and so they actually had one of their um I guess like elects become pope, right? So there's always been a connection with divinity and resources and money, and it just was so funny to see that headline when Venus moved into Pisces because you're like,
absolutely. All things money, and but also related to religion, as you said.
yes.
But did you
um
also say it's connected to like being a good Catholic? Was that what I heard? Kind of
Yes,
say?
val
Okay, so
espousing
like
the values.
espousing the values. Yeah, that's also very Piscean, like aspiring to a very flawless presentation, or like, yeah, just wanting to be ideal in that way.
But here's the thing, remember, we're still in Saturn and Pisces. So again, how much of this is like performative, right? The idea, there's like a disconnect with the intention and then the actual action of what you're doing.
I feel that. Yeah.
So what is this still signifying
There's also
here?
something inherently tense about just mixing money with religion.
And
It's
yet,
always like a place of trouble when those two things intersect.
oh yeah, I mean, like here's the thing, right? It is always going to intersect. Like, let's say for example, like in Islam, right? You have like charity, zakat. Like you also have this idea of like how you charge interest. Like there's always religion and money will always intertwine, even if it's maybe not like used to control people, but it's
Okay,
used to like
yeah.
control how you spend your money or like what you're supposed to do with your money.
I like that. Yeah, like
So,
values.
yeah, so truly, right? Like if you have to spend or, earn your living in accordance with your values, Venus, very Venus things. And so
Yes.
It is also interesting to think about the Chiron and Taurus transit coming up. The idea of our values are broken. We have, we need to heal our relationship with what really matters and what's important resource-wise. That's just going to be a very interesting transit, especially because Chiron and Taurus is going to be squaring the nodal axis of the United States as well coming up. So no
Yeah.
doubt there will be a huge economic
That also makes
impact.
me think of Chiron coming in to clean up the mess of what Uranus did over the last 7 years. Like there is still a lot of
Mm.
unregulated spaces or the ways that innovation is ruining the planet. And I think Chiron is going to be like absolute reckoning with that environmental consequence.
Yes, absolutely. AI and the water also, right? But also I think I saw a headline like there's something about a water shortage or water bankruptcy was the title of the headline. And I'm thinking, wow, that can't be more on brand for Saturn at 29 Pisces. Like
I was like, are we going to go to the same place? Yes, Saturn and Pisces. Limits to water.
the what was also really interesting this week was you can kind of also see like a passing of the baton, if you will, from the old era to the new era, which makes a lot of sense, Saturn and Pisces moving over. And
Yeah.
I think one of the places we also saw that also happening on Feb 10th, by the way, was the Anna Wintour and Chloe Malle interview, which I don't know if you like had a chance to see that or
I
catch
didn't, but I
that.
know that Malle is taking over for Wintour. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. And it's interesting because, people are like, she's still a Nepo baby, whatever. And I'm just like, listen, she has like pretty good credentials, like she's still someone who I think really deserves the job, even though maybe we might argue about privilege. But you have to kind of take every transit with a grain of salt because it's not one universal experience applied to everyone. In
Yeah.
fashion, there will also be a disruption, right, between the old guard and the new guard. And for Vogue, the new guard involves moving from an older white woman to a
To a
younger
younger
white
white woman.
woman
Yeah.
who
That's
maybe has.
radical for this industry, all right? It's still evocative of the times, though. You're totally right.
And so the biggest thing that people noticed from this tense interview was the body language from Anna. She like literally was like off to the side and just like not open. And the one question I think that people might have been familiar with the video circulating was if you could have the 1990s budget of Vogue, what would you use it for now? And Chloe went into, well, I would pay everyone a lot more money. I'll pay our
Yeah.
social media team a lot more money because they work nonstop. I would build a podcast studio. And she just like talked about all these really modern ideas, right? Like pay your people more, pay your social media people more, take technology seriously. It's not just a random side job thing.
Mhm.
And then Anna comes in at the end and is all, but just to be clear, very like, let's clean this up with the old guard. We will adjust the budget to reflect whatever the current environment needs. And like, it was just so
Mm.
artful and dismissive, but you
Mhm.
could sense the tension. It was palpable.
Yeah, I can see that with Anna Wintour's Mercury at 29 degrees of Libra. So like wanting
Mhm.
to, again, as you said, like iron up like what has just been said, but also kind of not saying anything of substance. As you do that. This is kind of like maybe astrology one-on-one, like two Scorpios in a room together. And I mean, she chose her. She senses the power and the eminence of this person. And I wonder if there was like a bit of like, I don't know if intimidation is the right word, but like this is you in a younger form, maybe.
Yes,
And that can
yes.
be trippy, especially as you're like ending your career, kind of walking out the door, handing away the baton. That's an
Hmm.
interesting dynamic for a Scorpio who likes to hold on to things, especially power.
Oh my God, totally. I was just thinking, like, yeah, Anna has the Mars in Virgo and the Saturn in Virgo, right? Like, on some level, there is even this fear of mortality.
Ooh.
And when you think about, funnily enough, she's a Scorpio, so, like, she has to confront her mortality.
Mm.
And so, how you choose to confront it, however, is, shows you how much you've learned, how much you've grown, how much you're willing to evolve with the times.
Yeah.
And again, as you said, that Mercury 29, it's like, well, we're not going to go easy into the night. Let's
That's
just put
right.
it that way. Especially because it squares that Jupiter in Capricorn, 25
Ooh.
degrees. Like, I am the elder. You
That's
respect
right.
your elders.
Yeah, I have the wisdom. I give the direction here. Yeah, and then like a younger person saying, "Well, we would do this." It also makes me feel like, Chloe's Mercury is on Anna Wintour's Chiron in Sagittarius and like the kind
Mm-hmm.
of speaking of a belief maybe that Anna Wintour doesn't have because she didn't grow up with that kind of mentality where people were like paid fairly. Like that's a new Neptune and Capricorn thing, right? That Chloe is kind
Mm-hmm.
of ushering in. All millennials are ushering in. So it made me wonder if like when she said that, there was like a reflective kind of like pain or itch around like, I don't hold that belief. That's a belief that I haven't like felt with, or maybe that's a belief I have
Mm.
had, but I haven't been able. So I'll be, yeah, there's something rich in that because Mercury's talking, Mercury's the interview. So that had to have like been poked in some way.
Mm. It is interesting because if you notice, even in Chloe's chart, right, like she's got the Sun conjunct the South Node and Pluto and Venus conjunct the South Node. It does make me wonder about that representing Anna in a nutshell as well. You know what I mean? Like this supremely powerful fashion figure with Pluto and Venus and
Mm,
Libra. And then when you think about the idea of the Sun conjunct the South Node, like Stephen Forrest also writes that, you are orbiting someone else's halo. And so I'm sure there is a bit of a struggle in this transition period,
yeah.
between the old guard not letting go and the new guard wanting to come in and make all the changes immediately. And I think you also see that tension a little bit with, Kathy Hochul and Zohra Mamdani, like it's the old guard, but he's bringing in a fresh perspective. And I do think that's a partnership that's working out really well right now. And I think you see the highest potential of that. But
Yeah.
then with this Sinistry, which I think was so compelling because I've never actively looked at their charts together. And then obviously when you pull them up, you're like, of course there's drama. Of course this interview came out this week of you think even about the potential for Chloe's maybe Virgo moon, right? Because she was so quick with like, these are all the fixes, okay?
Hmm.
And then that potentially activating Anna's Saturn, like there's a
Yeah.
choice that Anna could be making as a mentor. What do you do in this situation? Do you criticize or do you, kind of let the young bird soar a little bit and
Yeah.
support? I'm not sure Anna passed that test specifically.
Yeah, I'm also seeing an exact square between Chloe's Uranus and Anna's Saturn, which is just this prototypical battle of like the new versus
Mm.
the old, or right having these like very, I won't say far-fetched, but Sagittarius is the weaver of like dreams and tales, and like it could be larger, it could be better, it could be bigger, and then Saturn in Virgo is like, well, I've been holding down like this process for years, and it's exacting, and it's the way I like it, and it's just so. And then Uranus is like, well, have you thought about doing that? It's just kind of that
Hmm.
quality. So I would wonder also, because when I see Saturn Virgo, Mars Virgo, and a Scorpio Sun, like control, feels like such like a huge life theme. And that's
Hmm.
not really the same for Uranus, and she has Mercury with Uranus as well. So makes me kind of think, even without seeing the interview, like were there planned responses? Was this kind of off the cuff in
Yeah.
some kind of way? But either way, it bothered that mechanism within Anna that I think maybe seeks control or like refinement by having like the edges of a thing really like defined in a way
Hmm.
that Sagittarius doesn't. It's like it's all about the future, and who knows what it could be. It could be anything.
Mm. Oh, I really like that. I think it's like really profound what you said about, the idea that like this was not what the generation before was raised with, the idea of equal, like what a radical
Yeah.
concept,
Yeah.
like how can you make that happen, right? And I think I even hear that in so many people and their aversion to sort of this even idea of democratic socialists or something, right? Like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
you want a
Yes.
better life for everyone? Well, that has never happened.
Yeah, you
So,
want your student loans forgiven? No, I paid mine. Tell me how that makes sense. You just want me to suffer. You just want me to suffer. And Anna
literally.
Wintour has a Venus co-present Chiron. So it's also like the beliefs around women's value in the workplace and how
Mm.
difficult it must have been for Anna Wintour to really rise to the top of a male, I assume male dominated industry, at least back in those days. And then to
Hmm.
have Chloe kind of maybe be the recipient of that work where it's like, well, yeah, but of course you would pay me equal, if not more, right, for putting in more effort. But that was not a given in Anna Wintour's time. I assume, just knowing the arc of history.
Hmm. I mean, they should be really thanking social media because I feel
Yeah.
like, the reason why Vogue felt relevant to me still, I mean, obviously like there's the Met Gala and it's like still an institution, of course, but like it's those videos that randomly show up, like, oh, 37 questions with Zendaya, Vogue at
Yes,
home or
yes,
whatever,
yes.
right? Like the social media team deserves its flowers. And I do think that they're here's the thing, social media can't go away because so many people have built their businesses on social media. And it's also the idea that people
Yeah, I
are
was going to say that's a good point.
like,
People are letting their businesses crash and fall, burn and fall. Yeah, yeah.
but they are learning to advocate for their businesses in a better way because you're
Yes.
thinking about how much people even pay content creators, like, oh, I'll give you this to make a post, right? And it's like, no, that's like way undervaluing what I like. You're starting to embrace the value of your voice and your
Mm.
platform. Like, in theory, it should be empowering if you have a relationship with it where you are creating, not just consuming.
Sure. Yeah, but if it's actually like the art, it's part of the message, it's part of the platform. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Mars opposite the moon is also
Mm.
very good for just like, you make me uncomfortable.
There's some mommy stuff happening.
Sure. Yeah, maybe. The daughter I
Well,
never had. Does anyone have a daughter?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm like, does Anna Wintour have anyone? Like, I see her literally like at tennis or like with her glasses, and that's it. And I don't really.
Interesting.
She exists as like an enigma, Like she's Anna Wintour. Like I
Yes,
can't
Neptune on the
imagine.
South Node, exactly. You came into this world with Mystique, and you will leave with Mystique, and we will never have known you.
Yeah, goodbye, good night, thank you. But obviously, we move on to the next day, Feb 11th. This one was sad. James Van Der Beek, obviously, we got the
I
news.
didn't know he was sick. So
What?
yeah, this
No
really hit me.
way.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. When I was like following him and his cancer diagnosis and the Dawson Creek reunion in September, I remember looking at his chart and he hadn't showed up at the time. He was supposed to and
Oh,
he
okay.
he he
Yeah.
didn't. And he sent a message like, "Oh, I'm okay" or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh, when you think about that lunar Pisces eclipse hitting 15 degrees, hitting his Mercury and his sun in Pisces. We don't have his time of birth, of course. But yeah, this one hit.
This one was pretty rough. So I caught up on his last few years of life in the last few days, and it seemed like he was really like using the cancer journey as an excuse to get closer to spirit, closer to God,
Mm.
which is just a beautiful endpoint of having the sun in Pisces and the North Node kind of being with his son as well. And we were talking about this before we hit record that he was like, I'm lovable, like God loves me at kind of like all stages. And
Mm.
what a parting message, right, for Mercury in Pisces and the sun in Pisces to just like at any state, no matter what you are, no matter what identities you've picked up and put down, God loves you. And, replace God with whatever makes sense for you, but you are loved in that state. And what a
Mhm.
message of like humanity, right? It came differently. The message of humanity at the Super Bowl was very joyous, right? But this message of humanity, just as potent, right? It came through a little bit more of that somber, that somber way that Pisces can sometimes show up.
Yeah. And it's really powerful, when you think about Chiron and the South Node,
Yeah.
survival or confronting survival was gonna be the medicine.
I
Or,
love that.
when you think about Mars and Aquarius ruling that South Node and Venus and Aries, right? Like there was a lot of fear that I'm sure he had to transmute. And also to then come into this idea of I severed myself from the shackles of identity.
Yeah. I know who I am, like beyond all of this and underneath all of this.
I think I wrote something along the lines of like, the North Node on Mercury. It really did feel like his soul was like calling home, with
Yeah.
Jupiter trining into the sun as well. It was time, and I mean, what a beautiful sermon. His 48th birthday, there are these videos as you were alluding to circulating. And, when you think about this is just right before his Chiron return, right? And so on some level, his Chiron return being this gift that he's like transcended into elderhood, but from to a different
Yeah.
dimension is so Piscean as well.
Oh, that is really gorgeous. And I'm thinking about Catherine O'Hara. She was Pisces too, huh? And Rob
Mm-hmm.
Reiner, Pisces. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
There is something very Saturn and Pisces about like making living legends than actually like posthumous legends. Or I don't know, there's something about like crossing that threshold between life and death of these like really powerful Pisces stars,
Mm-hmm.
and Saturn being in Pisces and Saturn being like traditional ruler of death, that last threshold, that last boundary. I can't
Mm.
articulate what it is, but there's something coming up.
No, I feel that when people talk about like celebrity, like there is sure celebrity and complications with the relationship there, but then, for the Pluto Scorpio generation, we dealt with a lot of trauma. We
Mhm.
internalized a lot of trauma. And so for a lot of us, TV shows like this do become comfort. And,
Yeah.
as we said earlier, we're all grieving. And it's like all these people who played such big roles in our childhood dying, they live on film forever. But I think more than ever, the souls who are choosing to leave at this moment in time have to remind us of some of the lessons that we learned a long time ago, but
Wow, yeah.
that we need for this next chapter as well.
Yeah, like passing behind or leaving behind some wisdom that we can take with us into this new chapter. It's
Yeah.
really, really beautiful. I also think of how, because this is Dawson's Creek, what a show. Schitt's
Mm-hmm.
Creek. Whoa, wait,
Pisces!
where are they? They're both creeks. Okay, wow. Hi, Saturn. I don't know if you just crossed the threshold into Aries or what, but that was a profound thing. Yeah, but these are both shows.
Yeah, it did. It's 7:30 officially.
No
Saturn
way.
is in
Did you guys notice that there's
Aries.
both creeks? But these are both people who provided such relief. And I think it's the same too with like Rob Reiner and how his movies are classic, right? People go back to them to feel good all the time, and to meet these current moments with like a sense of medicinal nostalgia. And so all of these Pisces identities kind of, I think, just bring that up for me. Like, what a service you did through your art. It was more than just like pop culture. You were more than just a teen heartthrob, but you provided serious healing then and now. I just love it. Like that, there's a Pisces through line there. There's a
Mm-hmm.
creek running through it.
Oh my God. When I was writing like my Catherine O'Hara like eulogy, LOL, the way that like I don't know how my account has now become like
Just
like
like
in
you, an
like
obituary and a
literally
here you are, Pluto rising.
like I find myself like how many times am I writing a eulogy for someone with their placements? And funnily enough, I think if I ever, when I pass, right, like I would love for someone to eulogize me through my placements. Like that's how I
That's
want to be communicated
that's
and
my love
remembered.
language. Know my natal chart is to know me.
Absolutely. And so I'm just thinking when I was doing the Schitt's Creek thing, it's funny because when I pulled up the chart for Schitt's Creek and Catherine O'Hara, literally there was a Pisces stellium in the sky when the show launched that
Wow.
activated her Pisces. And it was like a Mercury and a Venus and a Chiron and a Sun, I think, or whatever. But they all represented to me one of the roses and the roles
Oh,
that they all
yeah.
played. And I was just like crying all over again, like fucking hell.
Gorgeous.
Ugh. But okay, I'm not thinking about this. All right, maybe we talk about Giselle now before we dive into the Olympics recap because that seems like a nicer one to end
Okay.
this note on. Okay, so we moved into Gisele Pelicot. And
Okay, tell me the story.
oh my gosh, so you totally know this story. So this happened in 2024, I believe. So this was a well, she lives in France, and she found out that her husband had basically been secretly drugging her for,
Oh, I know the story. Yeah. You don't
yes.
gotta say it anymore. Yeah, okay.
Like it's like one of the most disgusting things. I mean, it's hard these days because there's a lot of that disgustingness in the air right now, but it truly like it was horrifying.
What a trespass against humanity and dignity. Ugh.
Literally, like marriage,
Okay, so
okay.
how's she being brought up again? What happened?
She's got a memoir coming out that I think is actually coming out the end of the month. And it's called A Hymn to Life. Shame Has to Change Sides. And a quote that I saw in the New York Times interview was, when we carry this shame with us, I thought it was like being sentenced twice because you also inflict that pain on yourself, and fighting that shame on an individual level, rejecting it for myself also meant working for the collective.
Hmm. Wow, Moon Pluto. That's a lesson for me to learn. Talk about like channeling just the deepest, darkest of the human experience. And I think through Leo,
Mm.
choosing to find the bright side in it, choosing to find your humanity in it, not to carry it with you, to let the shame go and to let like the true bad actors carry that. And you just move liberated enlightened forward. I love that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, powerful.
very powerful. What's the title of the book again?
It is called A Hymn to Life. Shame
Life.
has to change
There it is.
sides.
That's the word. That's the Leo word. I think
Hmm.
there's a quality to Leo that is here to celebrate life unabashedly, to just spontaneously show up to the joys and the celebrations of life. So I love that as like Moon Pluto was like, this is a hymn to life. And it took me going through Pluto shit to really actually kind of carry out some wisdom or like to really drive this Leo evolutionary point like home in a more impactful way.
Hmm. I mean, you think about it, this is a pretty interesting moment, right? Like the book is coming out, the memoir is coming out. She's got her first interview, which I did see a lot of comments saying like these are the types of people we want to see, real
Hell yeah.
heroes.
That's what I want to see too. Yeah.
Right? Like they are inspirational, and that I think is so much of this next Saturn and Aries era. It's celebrity loses power because you take the power back and you do
Mhm.
something with your life or you work through something that can benefit the collective. That is the responsibility of the public figure. And
Yeah.
so I think it's so profound that she has her North Node in Aquarius, of course. So she's going through her nodal return
Mhm.
coming up. But also the fact that she's going through her Mars return right now, also, third, ninth house, book, talk show, cover, magazine, like this is the third ninth house in action.
It
And
is. I was going to
beautiful.
name, she also has natal Mercury retrograde. And so when you have a natal
Mhm.
retrograde in the sky, when that repeats, right, especially like it's a different Jupiter sign, so there is some kind of like resonance there. It's a major moment
Mhm.
for you with respect to the things that Mercury represents. So like talking, interviews, it's trining up to Neptune. So we're talking about way like new exposure. Being on the cover of Vogue gives very Neptune, like the glamour and the refinement of it all. But it's also
Mhm.
connecting up to Saturn in her 11th house. We have the same exact Gemini 24-degree rising, which is very interesting.
No
Yes, I'm learning
way.
about maybe what's coming for me through what's coming for her, but like feeling the responsibility, I must talk about this for the community and
Hmm.
rising as a thought leader, and publishing a book, right? And having that kind of come out like the fruits of your mental labors, right? And like Saturn producing some success or some accomplishment around that. The chart really is being lit up in such a wonderful way. And I also just want to name, like when I think of shame, I do think of Pluto, which is why I think
Hmm.
her Pluto moon conjunction, like her lived experience being the materialized, like God, like how this is not even a good word, like crunchy, how much more dire can it get than what she's been through?
Mm.
But I also think there's a quality of Aquarius that because it is so liberated, because it is so, I'm here to be myself and live as myself, it can be a conduit to letting that shame go as well. So I also
Hmm.
see her Mars return and Mars activating her North Node as also activating like an Aquarian promise of like, no, this happened to me. It happens to human beings. Nothing human is alien to me. I'm taking the shame out of it and I'm just going to tell the story of it. And we're going to all learn, and our wisdom as a collective is going to increase. So I love seeing Aquarius through that story lens that I think she's
Hmm.
bringing up. I love that. I love this.
Oh, I know her chart is so powerful, honestly, and this moment is so powerful. And when you think about, oh my God, look at that Saturn 0000
Where?
fresh right
Oh,
now
yes.
because of the current transit.
I was just talking about it as if you had moved the chart forward, but this is current. Oh
This
my
is
God, it's here, you
correct.
guys. Welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy for oh my God, this is wild. I'm
Happy new
like
Saturn years.
processing. It's interesting because obviously when you think about like a story like this, right? Like you're wondering like maybe Scorpio or something, right? But and of course there are eighth house placements here in Venus and Capricorn, Chiron, Capricorn, like an
Rough
institution
stuff.
or
Yeah.
yeah, it's I mean, marriage is an institution. So Venus and Capricorn, like those themes are hitting. But
Mm.
you think about also the idea of like Leo, when you break it out into solar houses, like Scorpio's at the bottom of the chart, right? And
Yeah.
shame really is a huge thing. Like you often ascribe it to Scorpio, but and Pluto, but realistically, like in Leo, it is a lot about confronting your shame so that you
Yeah.
don't have to perform or feel like you have to hide over things or, put makeup over something, right? Like when you deal with the truth, it kind of really sets you free. And the shame of not being, you know, public ready or public consciously ready.
Yeah, there's also like a Chiron moment happening for her too, with Chiron in the
Hmm.
sky trining. But yeah, I love what you said about like Leo and like facing it and not like drawing on the happy face. And I can't. imagine how she feels, but the quality of being on the cover of a magazine for something that important to you, like, wow, people have been on the cover of magazines for far less.
Hmm.
That like Leo performativeness, like, yeah, it's pretty,
Hmm.
but no, this has some Plutonian substance. It's carrying this currency of healing for sure, right? When it comes out.
Mm.
So I love that about this moment for her.
Especially with Uranus squaring that Pluto, Moon, Lilith, and Leo. I
Ah,
mean,
and
sh
Uranus about to enter her first house. So like she's
hmm
turning up, she's looking up. That's only up for
Yeah.
her. God bless her.
God bless her. God bless you, and thank you for your service.
Mhm.
Moving on to dun 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 the Olympics. Well, this week, I mean, I'm like not even sure whose chart. You know what? Let me pull up Chloe Kim's chart. Sorry, we don't have her time, but in case you don't know who this is, but she's won two golds in the Olympic like half pipe, I think is the event. She's an incredible snowboarder, probably one of the best to do it ever. She just won silver. It was an upset. She was actually upset by her own mentee, which was kind of surprising. It was like a big moment because her mentee crashed the first run. No one was expecting it. Her mentee literally nailed it on the third run. And
Okay.
Chloe, again, unfortunately slid to second silver, but she immediately ran over. She immediately gave her a hug. There was a lot of celebration. So a lot of people were really celebrating this as like a beautiful moment of women supporting women.
Yeah.
Very different tone than Anna Wintour and Chloe. When you think about passing the baton, there's a way to do it, there's not a way to do it. So,
Ew, I love that. Yeah. The first thing I see in the chart is kind of a replication of what we saw with Lindsey Vonn last
mm,
week, which is the Mars conjunct Jupiter and an Earth sign, like quality of just like owning land. There's something about like, I'm making the Earth my bitch. And I'm
yes.
just gonna like show up and like show out. So as an athlete that does that particular sport, that tracks and makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But Venus in Aries, look, this isn't a time chart, but I still do think there's a quality about like wanting the experience for women who come after you to be easier because perhaps you have faced a
Mm.
lot of obstacles. This is even something my mom does. Like she has Venus in Aries and she's like, give me a mentor, give me a woman. I need to like show her the ropes. So maybe I do connect that to like Venus in Aries and like wanting to, yeah, fight for and champion for women. And it's not just about you, but it's about like the connections and the people that you can like lift up along the way.
Mm.
It's also kind of like Taurus. I want everyone to be fed. I want everyone to feel safe and sound and like valuable. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, she's a Neptune square person, Neptune, I mean, Neptune square, Neptune squaring the sun, I mean. So
Ah,
there
yes.
is this element of she is a really nice person. She
Yeah,
is
she's
like
kind.
you can tell her aura is like incredible, right? But she had said, I think this was also in a Vogue interview, that she had battled a lot of like perfectionism, a lot about, the anxiety of showing up. And, some days it means showing up as your best and not still winning, and that's still being a win, and that's okay. Which I think can be difficult for a 29 degrees south node cap, like where it's like excellence and peak goatness.
Yeah, Mars conjunct Saturn, like you have to deal with like failures or that kind of like inertia, that heaviness around wanting to succeed and win.
Right now Mars is like activating her Juno in Aquarius, and obviously like someone who she has a relationship with, her mentee winning, and her feeling also that pride, and you think about her series in Virgo as well. So there's something here around like motivating maybe a soul contract, but it coming through mentorship.
Yeah.
That's getting highlighted, which especially because Uranus is trining into that series, right? So it's also really beautiful because Chloe and her dad, I think, actively like helped her move from South Korea to train in the States. So there was a lot of investment
Wow.
here as well. So it's like a win. You won, and it might not have been me, but we all won as a function of it. And I think that
Yeah.
is very Taurus-like, because it's ruled by Venus in Aries, like
In
the
a very
other.
crude way, it's kind of like you got the return on your investment. Just a
Totally,
very
Cap.
Taurus way of looking at it. But it also made me want to
Yes.
re-envision. She's coming up upon a Mars square, and Mars in Aquarius is
Mhm.
on that Juno, highlighting partnerships. So it can be this tension of like, yes, I lost, which is a very Mars like feeling of being let down. Like Mars wants to be the
Mm.
victor, but it's also this quality of like your win is also my win, or like that energizes me, Mars square, that tension, that friction. of like, yes, I'm holding a loss, I'm holding a disappointment, but at the same time, right, this person who I've mentored or that I love or that I care about, and this community, I bet that she cares about too, did get the victory, did get to like take something home. And so like that's also kind of like hers. I don't know, it's just an interesting way of maybe reading that Mars square as like victory looked a little bit different, but you
Hmm.
still like feel it. It came with an edge, but you still
Yeah.
get to celebrate it.
Yeah. What I will say is this. Dun dun dun. She I was watching her first run.
Okay.
This was on Wednesday, I think. And like Miles Garrett came down, her boyfriend, who literally is like one of the most amazing defensive players of all time. Like he will literally go down as a GOAT. Like it's so inspirational when like athlete couples get together
I know,
because
like
I'm like
talk about power couples, like for real.
literally, and their synastry is so freaking cute. But basically she had said, I think someone interviewed her and was like, how are you feeling about your run? And she was saying like the first run's always like the most nerve-wracking, but the worst is over.
Yeah.
LOL. And I'm thinking to myself, no, girl, the worst is not over because you still got to do the final. What are you talking
Oh,
about?
okay. Yeah.
And then of course, it didn't land the same way. She had a higher score in the first round than she did in her like 3 rounds here. And so it was just a very interesting concept around Jupiter and confidence, and obviously like Mars squaring her Jupiter as well right now,
Very true.
as part of that. So here's the thing, confidence is a really interesting thing at the Olympics because what I'm really excited to talk about, LOL, is Ilia Malinin flopping. Oh my God, I'm so harsh with my words, but this was a masterclass in a crash out. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've never seen someone who is like an Olympic like shoe-in has been like he has literally won 14 consecutive titles since 2023. This person was known as the quad god.
Do you have their chart? Please, can they have Sagittarius or
Oh,
Jupiter somewhere to
oh
explain the
yeah.
quad god?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, period. I was right. I was right. I have to be Sagittarius. He's a sun in Sagittarius,
I
Mercury Sagittarius, Pluto
mean,
That is quad god.
Sun, Pluto, Mercury, like quad god.
That is pretty quad god. Yeah.
The fact that he also has a Venus and Mars conjunction in Scorpio is like it makes sense the relentless like chokehold he's had on this sport and just I mean it's really impressive. Like he
Yeah.
is so fucking impressive, but the Mars square, enter the
Uh,
Mars square.
okay. Yeah. Tension, challenge. Yeah. Mars is also trining his Jupiter for that potent kind of like confidence boost that may or may not be, misguided.
Everyone was so confident. I have never seen someone collapse like this
Hmm.
at the highest stage. And
Yeah.
Venus on Uranus, unexpected AF. Like
Yeah.
it was hard. It
Oh,
was sad. It was sad. The commentators were like people were crying. People were just like so like my partner was like,
yeah.
"Did someone die? Like what happened?" I'm like,
Oh
"Well,
God. Well, how did he take it? By crashed out on the ice, do you mean like he fell, but what was his reaction to losing?
Oh my God. So this is also the other funny story. Everyone
Okay.
is like really praising, because he had to like immediately go to do an interview after losing, right?
Yeah.
And I hate that. Like give people some space to feel and then they can come out with their statement. But he basically was very composed and he was like, I blew it and I'm just gonna have to live with it and I'm just gonna have to learn from this moving forward. Like, he was holding it together.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was, in the immediate aftermath of him blowing it, he literally was heard saying, they should have sent me to Beijing in 2022.
So a bit of that petulance still coming in. Okay.
Hmm.
That's only fair. God,
It
to be an
is.
athlete on a world stage and people shoving mics in your face, go off, King.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the pressure.
Totally. It's also really interesting, right? Because this week, like, that's not the only reason why he was in the news, right? Like, people were making such a big fuss about, oh, he did this backflip that had previously been done. She got dinged for it and was deemed illegal, and now all of a sudden, this is the first, yada yada. So there was controversy, not explicitly from him, but around him, which is a very Venus and Mars Scorpio thing, I must say.
Yeah, but like the ancestors. making him
Mm-hmm.
crash.
Ah,
Like credit where credit is due. You know what I
listen.
mean? But it's not up to him, right? That was just the media circus around him. But that does kind of like come to mind, like, no, it was a black woman, and you will feel the rage.
Yes! I mean, I was literally gonna say Jupiter on the Lilith in Cancer, right? Like there is something happening here that, again, maybe like more humility. Because like with the SAG, it is always gonna be the idea of God. Like you can think of yourself as God, but is it okay to think of yourself as God like in this way?
Yeah.
Like you still have to have humility because everyone is going to show up with hard work, right? Like your hard work does not mean it's more like you have talent. How do you really reconcile with that confidence? And I think Scott, he was a figure skater and he had made a comment about how the only person that would beat Ilia is Ilia. And I mean, that's very Venus and Scorpio ruling the South Node as well. Like the expectations were too much. And
Yeah.
so he self-sabotaged in the worst way possible.
Yeah. On a very kind of like light LOL note, I would expect Mercury retrograde in Sag natally to put their foot in their mouth at some point.
Yeah.
So, though he was composed in the interview,
Yeah.
there was something overheard. It sounds like that's what it was. I was like, yeah, there's the Sag coming
You
out.
know what? And here's the thing. I think we should all leave space for people to be petty and just in the moment be emotional, right? Like you can't be like camera ready all the time.
Especially
And
with sports, it's such a body energetic thing. There's no way you're going to be composed or say the right words.
totally.
You're
I
too
mean,
activated.
honestly, even the figure skating, like, listen, figure skating is incredible because there is so much drama. Like, even with the fire dancing, LOL, the free dancing or the ice dancing,
Yeah.
the American couple lost, okay? This is like the 15 years, they're married, they're the sweethearts, everyone's rooting for them. They had a flawless performance. And then the French came in, controversy AF, like one's with a partner who's been accused of sexual assault, the other is like potentially a dick, like, and no one's really saying it explicitly, but everyone understands it. And then they
Yeah.
got together last year and now they fucking won gold. And there was a mistake. And it's amazing. Like figure skating is phenomenal drama, I must say.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast where the person is like tertiarily like very into figure skating and it's a whole world.
Oh
Like
my
I've only caught
God.
the edges of it, the glimpses of it. But something
Yeah.
I did want to say to just follow up on like where we were last week, another Jupiter Mars person, Lindsey Vonn, crashed.
Mm.
And so there's that kind of Jupiter inflammation again around like one's capabilities and pushing one's self too hard. But also like the hubris of Jupiter, like sometimes you will just fly too close to the sun and you'll crash.
Yeah. Very interesting message ahead of the Saturn in Aries times, right? Like there
Move
are gonna be
slow.
people that are gonna crash and burn,
Hmm.
but it's also okay because you can pick yourself up, but you're gonna have to understand what's a calculated risk versus what's just plain blind
Risky.
faith.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
silly stuff. Very true.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are a daughter of Saturn like me, I will be heeding your wisdom. I will be moving slowly, not punish me. I do not want to crash out.
Slow and
It's for Jupiter people. I
steady.
think Jupiter people might have a hard time with with Saturn and Aries. Moving
Ugh.
slow will
Oh
be
my God. Yeah, I'm gonna have to heat that one really loud with my like Jupiter, fucking Mars, Venus. I mean, here's the thing. I was like super eager to talk about like Wuthering Heights, LOL, but
It's
hours
okay.
like
That'll still be out next week, I
that
think.
will still be out next week. Yes, absolutely. This was the episode where I also realized that like apparently I am Emily Bronte. Like her chart and I are
Oh,
so similar. It
really? Pluto
makes
rising in Scorpio?
She is Scorpio rising. She's a Venus and Mars in Virgo. She's a Cancer moon, Leo sun. I'm like, all my
Uh,
elements are hanging out there. Maybe I need to read
are
Wuthering
you
Heights.
low-key a romantic? Are you a yearner?
I am a
You
yearner.
belonging?
I be longing.
Yeah.
I be longing for my belonging, and I also be longing for a deeper kind of love. But then I get confused about what that means. And then it's
Yeah.
like all this like, I get brainwashed by Valentine's Day capitalism, and then I like from the integrity perspective, I fucking hate Valentine's Day capitalism. It means nothing. And then yet my other romantic Leo side is like, but the flowers. And I'm like,
Exactly. I just had like a brain cannon around the fact that I may have Venus in Aquarius, but my seventh house is ruled by Jupiter and Leo. And so I'm like, okay, that's where the tension is, where I'm like, fuck Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Don't fucking care. Also, if there's not a bouquet of flowers,
Yes.
meet me in the middle. I hate it. But also, go ahead and do your due diligence.
Fucking tense,
I
honestly,
hate
up in
being me.
here.
It's so annoying. But that's the tension of life.
That is the tension of life. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this very special Saturn and Pisces into Saturn and Aries. I
Yeah.
wonder if you could even catch the tone of how it changed the episode. You know what I mean? As the episode goes on, like maybe halfway through the episode, see if there's even a tonal shift. Could be quite interesting.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you guys for listening. We'll be back weekly-ish. Again,
Yes.
don't know if next week will happen yet, but hopefully you'll be here to subscribe and get the episode when it comes out. So
Yeah. See you guys later.